My name's Jenny. I was diagnosed stage 3C colon cancer in December 2017. It was upgraded to stage 4 after I had a stroke in 2020. So I had a stroke. Post-stroke scans found the double lung mets. And yeah, and I spent a lot of time with my dog. I'm a graphic designer turned vet tech turned medical coder. Um, and I just spent a lot of time with my dog and people I've gotten to know in Delaware. Really, it was one blood test. I'm transgender. My endocrinologist happened to be checking my iron. I don't know why she was, but I'm glad she was. It was kind of, I mean, it wasn't low. It was, in the 50s, but it was lower than usual. She just said it was, a little low. Just keep an eye on it. Just something of note. She checked it, and whatever X amount of months, this probably would have been either 2016 or mid 2017, and then it dropped to 3, whatever unit of iron it was. It was iron saturation. And then she's like, "Oh, this is low." And then we passed it over to my primary care. My primary care said, "All right, let's do the B12 pernicious anemia." Didn't have that. Did some other blood tests. Didn't have those anemias. So he said, "Start iron supplements, and let's get you a colonoscopy," assuming that I had a rectal bleed of some kind causing the low iron. And then, colonoscopy happens, wake me up, you have colon cancer. The GI doctor was like, "We don't know what stage this is, but this is 100% colon cancer." It was like a 5 something centimeter tumor. They couldn't get the camera past. And yeah, I was 23. I had some weird symptoms up and down. Like I was diagnosed with whooping cough because I was coughing and vomiting. I had sciatica. My thigh went numb for a day or so. These were all diagnoses leading up. I was in college, not sleeping well, just a lot of scattered symptoms. There were days I wouldn't eat for several days in a row. I was eating probably 3,500 calories a day, but still losing weight. But I was assaulted a year or two before the diagnosis, and we just assumed that I was depressed from the, assault. And then, that's kind of that. A bunch of scattered symptoms. Who's thinking a 23-year-old has, what was eventually stage 4 colon cancer, when there were all these other, Occam razors. Our simplest explanation is oh, it's whooping cough, which I don't know where that came from, or, walking pneumonia, or, you know, uh, vomiting, indigestion, and then eventually it was like, "Oh, you had colon cancer." It's like, okay, that's helpful now. And that was that. Part of the thing is I'm autistic, and because I guess because of the colon cancer, I was not sleeping well, and I had a lot of issues going on, and I wasn't really taking much care of myself in regards to handling my medical care. My parents were, autistic child going off to college, coming back home, changing careers. My parents, did a lot of that, but they didn't come to appointments. They just like did the scheduling. I used to hate talking on the phone. I don't care now. And so I was just like, yeah, whatever, go to the doctor. I don't feel well. Okay, it's this. Okay, cool. Now it's this. That's cool. Just tell me what to do. So we did that. I can completely rationalize a 23-year-old having scattered symptoms and otherwise good shape. Oh, it's like, oh, just this or that. It's not, stage 4 colon cancer. And, I wasn't communicating my symptoms well because, I wasn't sleeping well, and, I didn't really know what to express. And medical care was new to me, being involved in it more so as a, you know, I mean, I was diagnosed at 23, but this had been ongoing for years, here or there. Um, but it was just, it's what was whatever. Just, life sucks, and then, you die, but you gotta kind of get to the dying part whenever that is. I was diagnosed December 5th, 2017. December 6th, we did a CT scan. There's a small lung nodule lower left. The radiologist unfortunately said too small for PET scan, most likely benign. He was wrong. And then 2012, December 29th, I think, 2017, they cut me open, colectomy. It was open approach because they thought there was perineural invasion, which there was, but it was just a cell wall, so it never actually spread locally. And then it was like 2 out of 15 lymph nodes or something like that. So they cut it out, open approach. I didn't eat for 4 days prior to surgery because I had a virtual colonoscopy 2 days before, and she's like, "You can either eat today or not eat today, and then not have to do the prep tomorrow." And I'm like, I'm not doing the prep again. I had, did the colonoscopy prep 2 times in a month. And I'm just like, the gallon of like, it tastes like it tastes like nausea but in liquid form. It's like, no, thank you. And so I did that. And then yeah, so then December 29th, 2017, I go in for surgery. I don't know, it's like an airport. Oh, here's a buzzer. We'll call you when you're ready. And there's a, late for departure for surgery, arrival. I was like, am I in an airport? And it's like 5 o'clock. I have surgery is always 5 o'clock in the morning, so I'm just barely awake. My dad just like getting me there, and I'm just like, what is happening? And then I go back. They do the stuff. I wake up. I have some memories of in recovery of like my brother crying. My brother doesn't do medical. He's older, doesn't do medical stuff well. I mean, obviously, he was prepared for that situation. No one was. I have some vague memories. I was high on whatever opioid they had me on. And then I'm in the recovery wing, and then I get a chemo port placed, and then I start chemo. It was Folfox. Did it for 6 months. I had to stop one treatment because, like I said, I was a vet tech. I was bit by a dog on an off week of chemo, and my hand swelled up and had to get antibiotics. So they postponed one treatment by it's whatever. And so my hours were cut because I couldn't work as much because we were like, I guess they were just waiting for something to happen before actually cutting my hours. So then I did the 6 months of Folfox, and then we did another CT scan. The lung nodule was gone, and then my oncologist leaves for the FDA, and I'm like, okay, cool. So then I spent the next few years fighting my insurance to cover facial feminization surgery for my transition. It took like 3 years to get it covered. I guess 2 years. I stopped. I didn't know. I didn't really understand I was supposed to get a new oncologist. That it was my job to get myself a new oncologist, not them. So I stopped seeing oncology. I go through for the CT. I go for the facial feminization at Johns Hopkins, February 2020. I have a stroke in my left eye because the doctor messed up the drugs, and I'm blind in my left eye now. It's called a central retinal artery occlusion. And then, spend some time in the hospital. I get discharged, see my, new stroke specialist with my healthcare in Maryland. And then they do CT scans. The stroke specialist calls me the same day as a CT scan to look for post-stroke stuff. And she's like, there's a lung nodule. And I'm like, no, there was a lung nodule. You're wrong. And I'm like arguing with her that I used to have a lung nodule on my, but she was like, this is your upper right lung. And I'm like, what do you mean upper right? No, it was lower left. And I was like arguing with her, and then I have a panic attack, and then I rush to urgent care, and I'm like, I just had a stroke. I apparently have cancer again. Just scan me. So the ear doctor scans me at like 2 o'clock in the morning. I text my boss. I'm like, yeah, I'm not coming in tomorrow. He's like, okay. And then so then comes back. There's a lower left and upper right lung nodule. I see a new oncologist literally a day before COVID lockdown in Maryland. So I was the last one in the building. We're like walking on, where's everyone? Where's the doctor? And then he's like coming on every appointment. 3 hours later, he's like, I'll be right with you. And then I meet the doctor. And it's COVID times. It's whatever. And then so COVID lockdowns happen. He says it's probably not lung cancer. They're very small. Your history with the timing doesn't really make sense for cancer. He's like, it's more likely to be a primary lung cancer than colon cancer. Anyway, fast forward a year, they keep growing, but so slowly. They're just like, all right. And then they finally got big enough to biopsy. They did a lung, punch biopsy. They stab you through the chest, put me on fentanyl, put me in a CT machine, and just stab me in the lung. And I'm like, all right, cool. Fentanyl is awesome. So I don't really care what they do when I'm on fentanyl. So they stab me in the lung. And while they're stabbing me in the lung, I hear the on-site pathologist say, that's a great sample. And I'm like, you don't say it's a great sample if it's not cancer. So I knew like right then that I had cancer, because they were like stabbing. It's like, oh, we missed it. And then it's like, oh, good sample. And I'm like, I was like, yeah, I work with doctors and, surgeons, and I know how they talk about. So I'm just like, oh, I don't say anything. And so then, I get sent home 3 days later or so. I can see the results on my phone, and I'm like, walking to my dad, and I'm like, I got the results. I'm like, Dad, I have stage 4 colon cancer. He's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, that's what it says. So then I frankly call my oncologist. Second oncologist had just left for Johns Hopkins. So I was in between oncologists again, and I'm like, hey, I just got diagnosed. I know you didn't see the results yet. Can I see an oncologist? And then I got a new oncologist. Got the chemo poured in. We start me on full fury. And then the next generation, like testing they did showed that I had BRAF, NHL, and I don't know, just a bunch of, alphabet soup of abbreviations. And it meant I qualified for the immunotherapy called Erbitux. So on the second treatment, they put me on Erbitux. And I was told it would be every week. And then they just said, oh, we just got the new every other week one. And I'm like, good, because I'm not coming every week. I do the full fury one, and then do the full fury plus Erbitux. It's an immunotherapy. I have full body skin rash. My hair finally falls out. And by the way, I gained 120 pounds over the entire cancer thing. And I was like so excited. I was like, get to be skinny. And I was like, yeah. And then it's like, oh, nope, I'm almost 300 pounds. So I was diagnosed with cancer at 170. I finished cancer January 22 at 293 pounds. I weighed 207 today. But anyway, so I did the full Fury, full skin rash, but the skin rash means it's working. My oncologist says you're having a good response. It's doing chemo, and I'm like, we're not doing more chemo. I want surgery. So he sends me to the lung surgeon. The lung surgeon says he also operate on you. We stopped chemo for a month and a half. He cuts me open, takes up part of my lung. It was a lung wedge resection, lower left, and then we did the upper right a month later. It was fine recovery. The nurses were cracking up, and I was like walking around the day after being cut open, and I'm just like, yeah, it's nothing, you know. When you have a 9-inch vertical incision in your abdomen, it's like the seppuku the Japanese samurais do. It's like, you know, just like feeling like my guts coming out, cough and sneeze, and was terrible. It was nothing with the lung. It really was nothing. So I get discharged from the second lung wedge resection, and then, you know, we wait a month, we start, you know, chemo. My doctor says is you could do FOLFOX, you could do nothing. And I'm like rationalizing, well, what do we do this or that? And he's like, really, 3 months versus 6 months of chemo right now is 1 to 2% difference. And I'm like, all right, let's go for 3 months. I did 3 months of chemo, a FOLFOX 6, and then I'm like, no more. I missed pretty much all of my 20s, either from pre-cancer symptoms or actual cancer. And everyone's always surprised that I'm 30 because I guess I look nice because of the facial surgery and I take care of my skin now. It's like because I just like I still wear my high school clothes because they fit again, and I don't really like I didn't like have my 20s. I didn't get to like experiment of fashion. I was like, and so everyone's like, oh, you're 30? Like all my neighbors like, holy you're 30. And I was like, well, yeah. And then I explained the story and they're just like, what? And that's kind of what it was. It was my parents pushing me to go to chemo. I listened to my doctors for them. I listened to everything. I advocated for what I wanted. I pushed for lung surgery when my oncologist was pushing for more chemo. I absolutely respect him. He's my favorite oncologist. I miss him. I just try to, piece together a life now that I'm, I guess I'm 2 years out from being cured from cancer, 3 years from 10 years post-diagnosis. It changed me as a person. I mean, I feel like you'd be kind of doing it wrong if cancer didn't change you. I mean, not to say you can do cancer wrong, but I feel like if it doesn't change you, you're doing something wrong. Um, I feel like my sense of humor is even more out there and a little inappropriate at times. I don't know, I guess I give less of a about certain things and other things I care more about. I don't know. I try to, I guess, part of the therapy I do, DBT, it's all events have led to now. This now is what you have to deal with no matter what you do. You can't change the past. And then, so that's kind of what I try to do, not that it works every time. I feel like I handle all my medical stuff now. My parents are only there for support. I do it all myself now. I review all my own documents. I review notes. I send my doctor's corrections. I'm a soon to be a medical coder, so and I've been in a medical malpractice lawsuit and was a vet tech, so I have a lot of background and very involved in my care. Um, I don't know. I mean, it was a wake up call. Now I eat really well. I eat really well. Like I said, I've lost a lot of weight. Just the first 50 pounds was all diet. I wasn't exercising. It was just eating well. And it's kind of what it is. It's now it's do or die. I mean, but it's also just dumb luck. If they happen to find my iron, I happen to have a stroke. Kept finding stuff. Advocate for yourself, and fi- not like fight with your doctors, but push for what you want in your medical care. Um, and just try to do your best. And tomorrow is not promised to anyone. And you kind of just got to roll off the punches. As I was saying before, is all events have led to now. Now is what you deal with. I mean, you can spend all this energy trying to fight what happened in the past or trying to, control reality, but it's just really, it's like happens and you got to deal with it. I mean, I know it's not like the most, sensitive thing to say, but it's, I mean, millions of people have cancer and it's just like, it sucks. I can't explain why I'm here. I don't have any like, oh, Chris beat cancer shit or whatever, the food guy who I was like, I'm not gonna get into that, but um, I it just I don't know. I listened to my doctor, I advocated for what I wanted, and I had a familiar support system. Um, it's I mean it's really all there was to it. It just I guess I got lucky. I mean You can see all those horrible statistics, oh, 85% chance of death, 90, 95, but it's like that's the average. It means there's people on both sides of that number. So it's just like you can look at the numbers, you cannot, I mean, you can Google, you cannot Google, you can see the biopsy results before the doctor calls you, then Google and have a panic attack. You can do whatever you want. That's really what you got to do.